Mr. Chair, I'd like to call the question on the union set. Okay, do we have a motion and a second?
I believe Jason motioned, I second.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the next item is the regional agreement. So just to sort of recap a little bit, as we've discussed before, a few months ago, we discovered that we are operating some segments of our school district in a way that is not covered by the regional agreement. And DESE was contacted on this, and they agreed with us. In some respects, what we're doing in some ways is illegal under DESE's eyes in the regional agreement, so it is something that we do need to take action on. So the pieces in question are sort of in two parts. One is the pre-K program, which is a Silver Lake program that is not discussed or covered at all in the regional agreement. The second part is some operational functions and roles that support that are under Silver Lake as well, and again, not in the regional agreement. So at a prior joint meeting, union meeting, we agreed to pursue adding the pre-K program into the regional agreement. And we've been working very closely with DESE for a number of months now to do that. The regional agreement is very old, it's very dated. It hasn't had a good update through DESE for decades, quite frankly, and regulations change, etc. So we are in, I believe, our fourth iteration of updates and revisions with DESE. We're getting close. We had a meeting with DESE on May 4th. They had already looked at the most recent agreement revisions. They agreed that we are getting close. They're going to be coming back to us with their next round of comments, which I think is probably going to be close to the final. Things that have been updated are the most recent census numbers, the 2020 census. We need to update our voting weightings to reflect the most recent census. Of course, adding the pre-K program into the body of the agreement. That language is in there. We made it broad enough to, if we needed to for any reason in the future, so that we don't have to open up the agreement again, we've allowed for the pre-K program to reside in any of the three towns. Just sort of forward thinking, we may never need to trigger anything like that. And then Christine has been working very closely with Russ and with DESE to delineate our assessment calculation that needs to be in there as well. So things like that are being updated. The general regulatory language of the agreement is being updated. It's taking more time than I think most of us thought it would. We missed spring town meeting. We have told the towns that we anticipate needing a fall town meeting for this agreement to go before the voters and be approved. Once the boards of selectmen have finalized the election process in our towns, I will go out and remind the boards or inform new members of the boards what is going on with this, where we are, our current status, and again, anticipate a fall town meeting. The second piece of what we need to work with is the roles and the staff that possibly should be shared cost, possibly should not be under the Silver Lake umbrella. And we're working on that. We're going to work on that very, very aggressively over the summer. I think we've identified a number of shared cost positions that we'd like to chat about tonight. I think it's in the materials that were distributed. And with that, probably we want to...
It's 5.
You need materials.
Number 5.
Here.
Number 5.
Number 5.
is the spreadsheet for the sample.
The sample 2D agreement and the shared cost.
And I'm going to stop from here because this young man has finished setting up, and we are being recorded. Hello,
Yes.
by Area 58. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, I apologize. I for some reason, we thought 6:30, not 6. I don't know why I was told that, but
No worries. We struggled with parking for a little bit before 6 as well.
I got
so we started
really
a little
lucky.
late.
I got really lucky. I was worried for a second when I first pulled in.
Yeah, and they have a car show and a chili cook-off happening on the other side of the building, and I'm hoping perhaps there'll be some chili delivery at some point this evening. But I'm not going to hold my breath on that one. But thank you.
You're welcome.
I just wanted to make sure.
So Russ has provided us with 2 sample shared expense agreements as possible formats that we may want to consider. In addition, at the last joint meeting, we had a list of shared cost positions, and since then, again, I don't know if this made it into the folder, but we have Silver Lake K through 6 employees, a spreadsheet. So I can share that with everyone. It's currently Jeannie, John, and Paula all have access because we've been looking at this. So I'm going to share it with Karen, and Karen,
And I'll put it in the folder.
so that everyone has access. Some of the things the first tab for the K through 6 Silver Lake employees is the paraprofessionals. I think it's because it's not in there yet, but you have it as a document. That's K through 6
Okay.
Google Docs. Okay. So it's, the first tab is paraprofessionals. We have 3 Silver Lake paraprofessionals in Halifax. The reason why we have Silver Lake paraprofessionals in Halifax is because these 3 positions are paid for with a 240 grant. So again, it's understandable how these things came to be, but the reality is that there is no, Silver Lake is not an elementary entity. And so then you notice the number of
You might have to
paraprofessionals in Kingston, and there are 2 Silver Lake paraprofessionals in Plympton. Again, school committees this was explained earlier in the year, but we didn't know what form or where we would be at this point in the year. So we're just pointing out, the chairs wanted to see how many employees would be affected by possible changes, whether it be to transitioning these employees over to their school district contracts, or whether it meant transitioning over to, for example, Silver Lake to Kingston, as is the case with many of the paraprofessionals.
And you know, one thing I just want to step back and reiterate, we've talked about it before, but I just want to say it again. The pre-K program is an entire program. So it's taught by and supported by Silver Lake employees now. That whole program is legally able to be folded into the regional agreement, unlike what we're talking about now, which are not staff members or roles that are supporting Silver Lake in one singular program.
Can I add to that? It's actually because these employees span K through 6, which is not part of our original agreement. So that's why these employees are pulled out specifically.
Though they're currently housed under Silver Lake.
Yep.
So, yes, because I remember in one meeting, one of the questions came up, could we just have these programs be part of Silver Lake? And the answer from Desi is that it has to be an entire grade level. Right? You can't just absorb special education programs because that feels
Too loose.
discriminatory, that you're selecting particular programs based on ability and not based on grade level. So it becomes kind of a legal issue for us.
Tremendously illegal issue.
So then the second tab are the teachers in Silver Lake involved in different programs. And at the bottom of that page, you'll see that Christine has added potential unemployment cost associated. Now, what we mean by that is if teachers were to be taken into another contract, and Russ hopefully will be here soon so he can explain this in a more legal way, but the most common way of doing that is you would lay off the teachers from Silver Lake and then post the positions and then hire in Kingston or wherever these programs were located. And so that's why we were asked to calculate the unemployment costs associated with positions, because that's a very traditional way of handling these kinds of programmatic changes from district to district. So Russ can speak to additional options that may or may not exist depending upon what roads we take, but that's why that number is here listed.
And is that clear to everybody? Are there any questions? So we're really legally trying to get person A, role A, if you will, that's currently, for instance, in Kingston, who is supporting Kingston students, but is under the Silver Lake union contract, and that legally can't be the case. Jesse has given us till July 1st of next year to correct this situation. So you'd love to just swap out contracts for the person under the new contract, the appropriate contract, but you can't do that from a legal perspective. What we think has to happen is notify the unions, work with the unions, but notify person A that they're being laid off from Silver Lake, but their job is open under a Kingston union contract, a Kingston contract, and that person would get laid off from Silver Lake and apply for the position that they're already in. It's legally transferring them from one contract to another. There is, however, the potential that that person, when they get laid off, may not apply for their role under the new union contract. Therefore, we have to be cognizant of the potential for unemployment expenses that could arise from this process. Jeannie, would you add to that?
Yes, I would just say that, so once, if we do, as Paula just described, and these employees are now transitioned to, say, a home district, if you would, a district would have to accept them. The position would become, say, a Kingston position. Then there would be another layer in terms of a shared cost agreement that would have to happen between, say, Kingston, Halifax, and Plympton, because those expenses for, if we were to continue to include Halifax and Plympton students in our special education programs, which I would assume we would all agree is the best case scenario for the district, then there would be a shared cost agreement as well that would have to happen between Kingston and Halifax for Silver Lake. So there will be some budget, obviously there will be budget movements between like Silver Lake from the shared cost to individual towns, but there will also be potential shared cost expenses to each of the towns. Does that make sense?
It does, and it's complicated, and we've been living and breathing in this for a number of months now with Desi. There certainly are positions, like Jeannie said, that will be shared cost. They're positions that will be newly shared cost. And then you'll have Positions that reside only in Halifax, support only Halifax, that would be a Halifax position. Positions that are in Kingston, that only support Kingston, that would be a Kingston position, and the same with Plympton.
So, and we would still pay tuition, we have the shared cost, and then your student would still pay tuition to attend, which I imagine we have right now.
Yeah.
Similar.
But I think we've also determined through this, and this is where I think Kingston might need to, the burden has kind of fallen on Kingston over the last several years, the way that these agreements have been written, operating as a civil aid program, being housed in Kingston, and there's a lot of other layers that are kind of being untangled, if you would, through this, that the cost has kind of been burdened to Kingston for some of these programs that have tuition in district placements. So those costs may increase. And that's just something that's kind of been woven through.
So, for example, when we talk about the pre-K program, and we talk about the supports being received in Kingston, whether it be coverage of classes or the school nurse or the school principal helping with that program. One of the things that we may need to consider is leadership for that program as its own separate school entity within that building. So that would be an added increase. And so again, that could be worked into tuitions, but ultimately each of the towns would be paying, whether it be through tuitions or otherwise, that would be a cost increase to make sure that there was appropriate staffing for the program, even though they're in a building with staff, that staff does not support or service those programs moving forward.
This is sort of what happens all the time, because costs never seem to go down. But I mean, I don't think we've been appropriately applying costs as far as services delivered, just because of the way that we've been kind of holding it together. Kingston has had to bear that brunt with some of their staff. So I think it's just important for all the school committee members to understand that it's likely that everything prices can go up. It's still going to be a lot less than it would be if you were sending these kids out of district. And that doesn't even begin to account for the fact that they're better in district, if they can be in district wherever now and costs aside. You know, it'd almost be, so it's, I think there's going to be budget impact for the budgets next year that we're doing, just simply because these costs need to be appropriately incorporated.
I think we would also be remiss if we didn't mention that DESE has repeatedly told us that the full regionalization would solve most of these issues in a more streamlined way. It's been brought up multiple times now over the past year that we've been working with them. It's just not something that I think any of us have quite seen as feasible through the complexity of what a full regionalization would require, which would be approval of all 3 towns, all 4 school committees, etc. So that is something, though, that has been brought to the conversation multiple times from DESE. And we would be the only district operating in Massachusetts as a pre-K and then 7 through 12 regional district also. So we've got that uniqueness going.
But we think of Silver Lake as being unique anyway, so it's
As someone who's chaired the MASC Regional Schools Committee before, we have a saying on that committee, and it's, if you've seen one regional school setup, you've seen one regional school setup. You would be amazed by the variety of different complexities, both with unions, without unions, superintendents for K to 6 districts. It's, if you can imagine it, it's out there. So, you know, I remain invested in trying to make sure that, you know, Kingston isn't bearing the brunt of this any longer financially, and that we're doing what's right by the students of our 3 communities, but also allowing us to maintain the uniqueness of our 3 communities in the process as well.
This is all complex, and every time we get together and we discuss this, we peel the onion back and find something new to add to the list that we need to work through. as we meet over the summer to really begin to hammer through this. There'll be open meetings. Everyone will be invited, to make sure that the officials of the towns are well informed as well. But we do need to work through this, and we need to meet Desi's deadline of July 1st to have everything sorted out and in place from a proper legal perspective. So that is the deadline that's been put in front of us, and that is truly our goal, to meet that deadline.
And to add to that, the first deadline is actually December 1st for the regional agreement to be properly updated and accepted by the towns. So there's two deadlines. There's December 1st of 2023, which is why we're required to notify our towns that we're going to meet fall town meeting. And then there's July 1st of 2024, which they kind of gave us as a bonus just because we were working towards our first goal. So
They appreciate the complexity and the task in front of us. They've genuinely, I think, been very supportive of us.
I would suggest as we move through this process, and particularly for the committee members to be able to consume this, that along with providing, the agreement that they will go over, that we also put together the summer. And that's also will help our selectmen and other folks that are interested in town to understand that and sort of, how do you break it out? But basically, to my mind, when it comes to big substantive changes, we're bringing K, pre-K, that wasn't there before, that's there, down to here's a bunch of administrative changes that we made. I mean, the agreement is really old. So there's there's going to be a lot of changes in there. And if you looked at a fully read line copy, you kind of go, so why didn't we just start over? But I think it's important to break it out so that people can focus on what the main things are and be able to ask questions without a page through that. I think that would be very helpful, particularly for the selectmen who really aren't going to want to wade people in with the contract side.
And we talked to Desi at this last meeting, and we talked about it before ourselves, to have a little bit of a PR campaign to get people familiar with what we're doing, why we're doing it, so that the fall town meeting can go smoothly. People are already familiar with the concept and, why we're doing it, how we're doing it, etc. So I completely agree with you. It does need to be broken into digestible pieces of information.
I think the main things were, we have covered everything we can cover. I think what's lost, I hope to discuss with us tonight is what direction we want to move in with regards to the short contract. And did the committee have a preference? If you have a chance to look at these, Russ did text me and said that he was on his way, but that he wouldn't be here until at least 7:15. He's on his way and be there by 7:15. So.
Save them the time and tell them to turn around.
Yeah, I am.
And the rest is coming from the top.
Yeah, I am. If he's a half an hour away, and
But here's an example. So you have the two contracts. I think it would probably be, for folks that aren't used to just reviewing contracts, it'd probably be easier to get a quick summary of what one contract does over the other.
Versus the other, yeah.
And then be able to have that sort of a discussion in the committee. Because, clearly people wrote it one way or another for some reason, but it'd be good to do that and then be able to try and think about our district and what might fit better from that perspective. So I think a summary of some sort that would sort of highlight the differences between the contracts, what one brings with versus what one doesn't.
Yeah.
And I think that would be easier for folks to be able to apply it more at this level.
I don't disagree. It's a good suggestion. So with that said, our last topic for this evening would be to have a brief executive session to look at some executive session minutes. So if there is a motion on the Silver Lake side,
I make a motion to enter into executive session, not to return to regular session under Chapter 38, Section 21A7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law for the approval of our executive session minutes from February 16th, 2023.
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call. Jason?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Lucas?
Yes.
Amy? Yes.
Yes.
And myself is yes.
For the union, I make a motion to enter into executive session, not to return to regular, under Chapter 38, Section 21A7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law for the approval of our executive session minutes from February 16, 2023.
Second.
Okay, then all in favor, we'll go down the line. Judge, okay.
Do you hold a yes?
Maggie Cannon, yes. Caitlin Johnson, yes.
Lauren Laws, yes.
And John Williamson, yes.
Chase Frazier, yes. Aisha Kane, yes.
Excellent.
Thank you all. Thank you.